Hey everyone, today let's talk about making claps like these, or these, or these, and let's do a whole lot of this. So satisfying. So I've been composing a lot more electronic music recently, and I find myself always going back to the same old machine drum claps, like this and this. And while those claps are great and necessary and classics, let's say, they're also super artificial. And it reminded me of an artist I met a long time ago called Egokind. And at the time, I was working full-time in something non-music related, and he was studying sound design in Berlin. And that just blew my mind. The idea that someone could, on a full-time basis, be thinking about the nuances of recording and generating subtle sound differences, that to me seemed like a dreamland, an unattainable wonderland. So I was always basically sticking to some combination of the classic 808, the 909, and maybe some sample pack claps. But the claps and all the percussion in the Egokind songs, they have an electronic dimension to them, but also an organic dimension. They sound somewhat like this. Not exactly like that, but something like that. And so I had a bit of a brainwave on how to create such claps, and let's use this as an opportunity to just talk about claps in general. So on most synthesized claps, what you'll notice if you zoom in close enough is that there are in fact multiple transients on a clap. Most percussive sounds have what you call a transient, which is the initial phase when, let's say, the drumstick hits the surface. That's called the transient, and then the object ringing out is then called the body of the sound. So most percussive sounds have an envelope that has just one sharp peak and then tails off. However, claps have several, and that's because usually they're trying to simulate several people clapping at the same time. And when people try to clap at the same time, they clap at almost the same time, not down to the microsecond the same time. They stagger it out just by a few milliseconds. So if you wanted to synthesize a clap, what you could just do is take noise, like white noise, and draw in an envelope exactly like this. For instance, in Serum, I've seen Zenworld, for instance, in one of his tutorials, do like a peak, 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 and then a body. So you get this 3 transient kind of envelope. But today I want to bridge the gap between electronic music and acoustic music by incorporating physical claps into this. So what am I going to do? So instead of white noise for these transients, what I want is actual footage of me clapping. And because this room is quite reverberant, I'm going to need to put a blanket over me and the microphone just to get those little straight from my hands into the microphone without the room sounding around it. Then I'm going to load this recorded sound into a simpler device in Ableton, which means that it grabs all the transients and can trigger them like a drum machine. This is where we get that super satisfying crispy sound from the beginning. And then we're going to trigger three individual hits in rapid succession. And in order to not trigger the same transient every single time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a random device in there. So now each of these MIDI notes is triggering a different clap, and together it always sounds a little bit lush. Now this signal is super dynamic, and compared to a machine drum clap, it's going to sound quite thin. But it is kind of ASMR, and it makes your ears go open. So I think we can maybe get the best of both worlds by layering in consistently a machine drum clap just underneath this, so that you've got this one consistent layer and then all these detail layers around it. We might need to use a limiter to get the dynamic range a little bit under control. Then when we choose a kick drum, we probably want a kind of a subby 808 style kick drum, because we don't want too much high frequency content to draw our attention away from these crispy bits. Props to my friend Scott, by the way, for coming up with the phrase crispy bits, which has been stuck in my head since we talked about it. And if you want even more lush ear candy, you can use the same principle to program some swung 16th notes around it with not 100% probability, so you only get them sometimes. Maybe some random panning, adding in some secondary percussive layers based on Foley. And all together, it sounds something like this. And then if you really just want to show off, use Reason's bassline generator to generate a tasty bassline that goes underneath all this, and you start building your track up from there. publish this track and similar tracks in the next few months under the name Face the Sun, which is a collaborative project between me and my friend Anton. We've been working on a lot of material which is almost ready for release, so go drop us a follow on the SoundCloud page below. If you want to learn this stuff in a more structured context for absolute beginners, I've created a course which is called The Foundations of Electronic Music. You can go follow it on courses.underdog.brussels. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, give it a subscribe, hit the little bell icon, come say hi to us on our Discord channel, and in the meantime, stay producing, be good to one another, and take care.